I want to bring in our guests as well. Rajiv Dogra is former diplomat. Prateek Dattani is MD of EPG Consulting and former UK FICCI head. Thank you very much, Mr. Dattani and Ambassador Dogra. I'll start with you, Mr. Dattani. The biggest British delegation is how the Prime Minister of Britain, Mr. Starmer, sort of touted his visit to India. They just met a couple of months ago in July when the historic FTA was signed. It also comes at a time when there is, very, very big global headwinds when it comes to trade, when it comes to immigration, of course, led by the Trump tariffs and so on. In that context, how significant is today's meeting?
Yeah, so I'd make 2 points. I think one, the signaling mechanism from having 125 delegates with him is really important. In July 2010, David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, brought a delegation of just over 100 people. That was the biggest ever to India. And Keir Starmer has clearly tried to match that figure and beat it in a show of strength from the UK side. And UK is also in a unique position actually in the world where it has a better relationship with the EU than it had a few years ago. It's got the best free trade agreement with the US that any country has. Yeah. Despite Britain still paying tariffs, it's still in a better position than any other country. And now it's got this trade deal with India. So Britain has always marketed itself as a open, global, free trade economy. And with these three, the US, the US, the EU, and India, with ready access to the UK market, it puts the UK in a really unique perspective. And it's very much Keir Starmer saying, well, if you can't get business done with Washington, come to us. We're here to do business.
That's an interesting perspective. Let me also get Ambassador Dogra in this conversation. I mean, the conversations in the West, and this is not just restricted to the UK or the US, we're seeing this in France, Germany, other places as well. There is an increasing sort of anti-immigrant, anti-trade almost sentiment that's going on. We've seen the Trump tariffs. We've seen what has happened with the H-1B. At a time such as this, for India to pull off this FTA with one of the major Western countries, that is Britain, and similarly for Britain too. This is, I think, one of the biggest FTAs that they have sort of underwritten after Brexit happened, and that was 7 or 8 years ago. So the question is, can India and the UK sort of, as they say, show the way for how free trade can happen at a time when overall the sentiment seems to be very negative when it comes to free trade?
Well, you're absolutely right that FTA was certainly extremely significant, and especially because it was generous from both sides, from India as well as from UK. But it is still to be made effective because there's a process of approvals which is not yet over, and that's only natural. It takes a little time. But realistically speaking, I was doing a couple of tests for myself as to how important this is, how it will make a difference. And one of the tests I did this morning was to see the UK newspapers. There was not even a single mention about Starmer's visit to India. Only one paper, Guardian, carried a report on how they are impressed by Aadhaar's success and they want to replicate with some modifications that model in UK. So that is a positive. But realistically speaking, as far as UK is concerned, Starmer is passing through a tough time. Within 1 year of his being the Prime Minister, he's managed to get the lowest approval rating of any Prime Minister in UK in history. Secondly, the unemployment is creeping up. Manufacturing facilities are not rising. And there is a sense of disappointment that UK, in terms of its standing as a country which had law and order, is now not considered a safe country.
Okay.
Some of its cities are not exactly clean either. So there is a sense of apprehension as to the direction where UK is going. And as you said, Nigel Farage, if the elections were to be held today, he would win hands down against Labour. So things are not very healthy also on the investment front. Mm-hmm. In fact, high net worth individuals from India who had settled in UK are now transferring out because of high taxation, which is also a sort of concern for the delegation, the British delegation which is accompanying Starmer. One of the reasons why they are coming, and it is a little cynical, is to catch his ear and tell him that, look, UK will go down the tube if the same kind of policies continue on investment climate in UK.
So let me ask Mr. Dattani, clearly for Prime Minister Starmer, let's use the phrase very, very carefully, he's really under the pump in terms of the opinion polls there, and this is just barely a year into office, and he is being pushed further and further to the right by Nigel Farage of Reform UK. Now the traditional Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, in fact, unveiled this whole anti-immigrant thing, this policy that they're going to send back 150,000 immigrants, illegal immigrants, every year if voted to power for 4 years. So really, how much leeway, how much leverage does he have when the environment is this? I think he was asked a question when he was on board the flight from London to Mumbai about universities and, Indian students in British universities. And he said, I'd much rather have British universities open campus in India rather than all of them coming here, which is not exactly what you would hear from a Labour Prime Minister. So how much is that playing at the back of his mind, how this is perceived back home domestically, and whether or not this will actually improve his image and improve his approval ratings?
Yeah, there's no doubt that if Keir Starmer could go back in time a year, he would do many, many things differently. For a centre-left government to actually have very centre-right policies, some of which are copies from Reform UK and Conservative, is very, very unusual compared to, let's say, previous Labour governments like with Tony Blair. I think there are 160, 170,000 Indian students in the UK. And regardless of what both governments might say about the relationship between the two countries, the reality is that Indian students largely come here as postgrads. They get 18 months to stay after university in which they have to find a job. And the very, very vast majority of them will not find a job because Britain, as Ambassador just said, is going through a very soft economic patch. And those, out of those 170,000, the vast majority will come back to India. And that is where the challenge is with immigration, the immigration debate in the UK. People like Nigel Farage very successfully mix up illegal immigration, highly skilled legal immigration, and then student immigration. What Keir Starmer is trying to do is say, highly skilled legal immigration, we would love. If you can't go to the UK because it costs $100,000 for an H-1B visa, come to us. But at the lower skilled end, or the younger migration end, the students, etc., we probably don't want as many. We would rather open up campuses in India because that's more lucrative for UK universities, significantly more lucrative. And the political dial in the UK is simply that the UK doesn't want to see as many immigrants.